Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwara Gurur Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmatacharya Paryandam Vande Guru Paramparam Vasudevendra Yogindram Natva Jnanapradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hidarthaya Tattwabodho Bhidiyate. We are going through the Prakarana Grandham, one of the profound compositions of Adi Shankara Bhagavad Padar, Tattwabodham. Tattwabodham is a framework that has got the technical terms which are used in the Vedanta or the Vedanta Shastra. Not only the technical terms, Tattwabodham also gives the essential or the primary knowledge for us to understand our scriptures. So we can say the theme of Tattwabodham is Jnana Yoga, because we are trying to gain the knowledge. When we say knowledge, what is that knowledge we are trying to gain? What is the knowledge we are trying to gain?
Who am I?
Who am I? What is my true nature? What is my true reality? What is the end goal in my life? For that, you need to understand who truly am I. And if you see, or if you see the Tattwabodham from a bird's eye viewpoint, maybe from a very, from a aerial distance, there are different topics. Few of the topics we already discussed, and the core topic, if you see, it's all about self-knowledge, muktir hitva anyada bhavam swarupena vyavasthiti. It's all about know ourself and have refuge or dependence in that truth. Know, have dependence and take refuge, abhayam. So to take refuge in that truth, you need to know what is that truth. And that truth is within all of us. Swarupena vyavasthiti, anyada bhavam, muktir hitva anyada bhavam, swarupena vyavasthiti. So meaning, we are discussing about the Swarupa Jnanam. Who truly am I? And the problem with all of us is about the outgoing tendency. We always try to compare and contrast in our life. And we also believe in, seeing things and trying to compare and contrast. So that is where our mind, the subtler instrument, is always occupied in outgoing tendencies, trying to see what is happening, right? And we also have our sense organs, and the sense organs are getting the information, and mind is trying to process, and mind is always trying to go outside, trying to compare, contrast and relate. Correct? That is what is happening. So, knowing about ourselves, knowing about our Swarupam, how it will help us? It will help us in building a true balance in life. Because outgoing tendency versus the inward dependency. Once you know about the true self, and you will start depending on the truth. The real Abhayam will start coming from within. So if the energy is derived from within, and the outgoing tendency of the mind will be balanced, because the mind will always try to compare, contrast, etc. But when you know about true self, you will never get affected due to the outgoing tendency of the mind. So the first and foremost benefit that one will have in this process is all about balancing the outgoing tendency of the mind by knowing the true self and taking refuge in that self, so that the worldly things will not affect us in a bad way. And second benefit is basically the freedom from the dependence of the world. Freedom from the dependence on the world. Because you have identified the strength within, then what is the necessity of depending on the world for making you happy? Because you are inherently happy and that potential is within us. So then where is the question of depending on external things to make us happy? So that is where the freedom from the dependence on the world will happen. And third is basically the self-confidence, because that power is within us. When you say self-confidence, the first and foremost aspect is you should know about your true self. So when you know about your true self, that confidence will come from within. Through that Abhayam, the conviction will come from within. So the third aspect is the self-confidence. First is basically balancing the outgoing tendency of the mind with the inward strength. Second is basically away from the world, dependence or maybe the freedom from the dependence on the world. And third is basically the self-confidence that is coming out of the self-knowledge. And fourth aspect is, as we all are operating in this world, right, we cannot deny or nullify the transactions that will happen in the worldly plane. And the worldly plane will give a lot of challenges to our life. And this self-dependence, this self-knowledge, how it boosts or how it helps us is basically, it will help us to absorb the adversities that come from the worldly plane. So this self-knowledge will act as a cushion to absorb the adversities that are coming from the worldly plane. And last benefit is basically the capability to create healthy relationships in the society or in our life. Because knowing ourselves, and that truth is there everywhere. That truth is residing in all of us. As per Bhagavad Gita, Sutre Maniganaiva. So this is the common thread. Hey Arjuna, Bhagavan says that. So everybody has this truth. We are in that truth. We are the manifestations in that truth. Then we will start accepting others. Right? So that is the other benefit. It's all about the social quotient one can get. So maybe from a modern language or a modern perspective, we can say the social quotient is one of the attributes or one of the benefits of knowing our true self. The adversity quotient, these days, this is also becoming a new term in management theories. Adversity quotient. How, you can bounce back. How can you, repel all the adversities? How can you repel all the negativities coming in life and stay positive? So how? Basically knowing your true self. And the self-confidence based on the self-knowledge, that is the real spiritual quotient. So IQ, EQ and all were the the quotients needed in the olden times, but now we need the adversity quotient, the social quotient and things like that. So learning Tattwabodha or knowing about ourselves will help us to lead a better life. And how can we operate in this world? When you know about true self, we can have the Advaitam in our experience. That same truth is everywhere. I am in this truth. So one can experience the Advaitam. So Advaitam can be experienced in our inner plane, and we can still do the transactions in this world. And the transactions will never get affected. So we need to change our perspective when we transact in this world. With what? With this knowledge. Clear? And if you see the text, we have covered the three main topics, but for the sake of doing a recap, the text is primarily classified into 5 areas. The first area is the qualification needed or qualification required for the self-knowledge or doing the self-enquiry. Maybe in Sanskrit we can say yogyada or adhikaratvam. What will equip us to gain this knowledge? What are the different capabilities needed for us to know? That is called as yogyada, otherwise adhikaratvam. And second one is basically the understanding or analysis of individual. Maybe we can say it's a microcosmic perspective. When I say microcosmic, knowledge about a Vyakti, knowledge about an individual. We can say it's a Vyashti or microcosm. Right? If you see Bhagavad Gita again, the knowledge Bhagavan gives to Arjuna, we can say it's all about Tvam. First, second chapter, third chapter, fourth, etc. It's all about Tvam Pada. What is the nature of self? Maybe from an individual's perspective, who are you? And the next 6 chapters talk about Tad Pada. Tad meaning what? The macrocosmic, this principle, the universal principle. Known from not the plane of a Vyakti, and understanding from the exterior plane, right? So that is the macrocosmic principle. So the first is basically the yogyada, what all capabilities one should have to gain the self-knowledge. Second is basically analysis of an individual, analysis of the microcosm. Third is basically the analysis of the macrocosm or understanding of the samashti. When I say samashti, as per the Bhagavad Gita, Tadpada. Then what would be the fourth topic? Knowing the essential oneness of the microcosm and the macrocosm. Knowing the essential oneness of the Tada and Tvam. That is the fourth topic. And the fifth topic is basically knowing will get some or bring some benefit. Knowing about Tata and Tvam will bring benefit to us. What would be that benefit? Knowing about Tata and Tvam. We understand that the same principle is there in both. So what is that benefit one will get? What is that benefit?
Tattwamasi.
Tattwamasi, basically the mukti or the inner freedom. Right? You know about the true self and you also know that self is pervading everywhere. So with that knowledge, what one will get is basically the inner freedom, the mukti, the moksha. And The jnana bhalam is mukti or moksha. Right? So this is how this text is structured. And let us do a quick recap of the topics which we covered. The first part is the yogyada, as we discussed, the qualifications, and we call it as technically the sadhana chadushtaya. What are the sadhana chadushtaya sambat one should have, one should need? What are the four sadhana chadushtaya or the fourfold qualifications one should need? The first one is discrimination, nitya anitya vastu vivegam. The knowledge about what is permanent, what is not permanent. Meaning, the nama rupam, whatever we see, the nama rupam are called as the objects. So the subject behind the objects. Subject meaning the unchanging reality behind the objects is the nitya vastu. And anitya vastu is all about the names and forms, including our own body, including this world that we operate. So what is changing, what is not changing? Capability to understand this difference is nitya anitya vastu vivegam. Discrimination. Meaning capability to know that there is a subject which is not changing. So all objects are changing. The names and forms will always change. The subject which is there behind the name and forms is the nitya vastu. This is the sat vastu. Know that. This is the first discrimination. Second is dispassion. Dispassion is all about detaching from the impermanent and attaching to the permanent. Detaching from the world and attaching to the surubam. Detaching from the objects and attaching to the subject. Correct? When we say detaching from the objects, for the sake of doing transactions, we have to use the objects, but the real dependence should be on the subject, that is the true reality which is there within all of us. So, discrimination, dispassion. Third is the discipline, the Shadga Sambati, the sixfold disciplines. Shamam is the mastery of mind. Damam, mastery of the control of senses. Shamam, Damam. Uparamam. Uparama is all about withdrawal and remain in the higher nature which is there within us. In one way we can say it's the Sodharma Anushtanam. Uparamam is Sodharma Anushtanam. Sodharma Anushtanam is basically abiding in that principle. Withdrawal from the outside things and abiding in that principle. Then comes Tidiksha. Tidiksha is all about cheerful acceptance in life, right? Good or bad, you have to endure in life, because world will give, dvandam always, on or off, or negative or positive. So how to endure it, how to bravely, accept in life. This is Tidiksha. Then comes Shraddha. Shraddha is about faith in Shastram, faith in Guru, faith in scriptures, faith in Guru Parampara, our lineage. And this Shadga Sambati, the last one is the Samadhanam. Samadhanam is all about Chitta Egagrada, the single pointedness or the focus. Focus on what? Focus on that self. Focus on that reality. Okay, so these are the Shadga Sambati, discipline. So discrimination, dispassion, discipline, and the fourth one is desire. We call it as mumukshutvam. Correct? What is mumukshutvam? What is mumukshutvam?
This Uttaredatmanam Atmanam.
Mumukshutvam is all about the intense desire to know our purpose in life. What is that? Knowing the true self. The intense desire, because on and off we may have this kind of feelings coming, or the fluctuations happening, but this is the intense desire. This is basically the unflinching desire, pursuit of higher goal. What is that? Who am I? What is my true purpose? That is the desire. This is the mumukshutva. Correct? And then we started looking into understanding of the individual, understanding of Jiva Swarupam, and we also saw that the individual comprises of two parts. One is the Atma and the Anatma. Correct? Atma and the Anatma. Atma is the consciousness principle, and Anatma is the matter principle. Correct? So individuals are not Anatma. We are not Anatma. That is what Shastram says. And material part, we also learned the Shariratrayam, Stula, Sukshma, Karana Shariram. I am not going into depth of all because we already have seen. Then we came across the Avasthatrayam. What are the three Avasthas? Jagrada, Swapnam and Sushupti. Correct? Then we also saw the Panchakosha Vivegam, Annamayam, Pranamayam, Manomayam, Vijnanamayam, Anandamayam. Correct? So, Atma Satyam Tada Anyat Mithya Idi. This is the profound declaration. Atma Satyam. You, the consciousness principle, is the only Satyam. Tada Anyad Mithya Idi. Including the body, mind, the three states, the three Shariram, Panchakosham, everything is Anatma, and that is Mithya. That will never have independent existence. Then we started looking into the analysis of Samashti, analysis of Jagat, analysis of Srishti. So that is the topic that we are now into. And the individual is again a part of the world. We are related to this world. And we started looking into the evolution again. When we say evolution, the different factors. And we all have the faculties. If you see the Jnanendriyam, Pancha Jnanendriyam, Shabda Sparsha, Rupa Rasa Gandham. Then the Pancha Karmendriyam, Vaka, Pani, Padam, Payu, Upastham. Then the Pancha Pranan. What are the Pancha Pranan? Pranan acting in 5 ways. Pranan, Apanan, Vyanan, Samanan, Udanan. Then the Pancha Mahabhudam, Agasham, Jalam, Vayu, Agni, Prithvi. Then the 4 Andhakaranam, meaning Manasa, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankara. So these are the 24 factors. And I am not going into depth of this because we already have covered. And then we started looking into the Maya and Brahman. And the definition of Maya is Brahma Asraya, Sattva, Rajas, Tamo, Gunatmika, Maya Asti. Maya depends on Brahman. When you say Maya, all the names and forms. As per Srimad Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, Jnana Vijnana Yogam, Apara Prakriti is Maya and Para Prakriti is Brahman. The unchanging consciousness is Brahman, and the changing matter principle, the changing objects, the changing Nama Rupam is called as Maya. And Maya depends on Brahman, meaning the names and forms depend upon the consciousness principle for the existence. And Maya is also defined as the power or the Shakti. How the power comes? That is where it is defined. Trigunatmika Maya Asti. The power comes from the Trigunam. So the changeless truth is Brahman, and Maya depends on the Brahman for the existence. And how the Srishti happens? Srishti happens with the help of Maya, because the names and forms happen through the power. Shiva, Shakti. Shivan is the consciousness and Shakti is the Maya. So Shakti depends on Shivan. Clear? So then the Maya, how the evolution of 5 elements happen, that we have seen in the last session. Tada Akasha Sambhuda, Agashad Vayu, Payos Teja, Tejasa Apa, Adbhya Pridhivi. From Maya, the space or the Agasha evolved. From Maya, the Agasham or the space evolved. And Agasham is having the quality of what? Which quality Agasham has? Agasham has the quality of sound. Quality of sound. It can be heard. Then, so please understand, from Maya the space evolved. From Maya the Agasham came. And Agasham has got the attribute of sound, quality of sound. And from space, from Agasham, what came? Agashat, Vayu. So from space the air or Vayu came. So meaning space came from Agasham. Obviously the quality of sound is also inherited. Correct? So Vayu or air will have the quality of what? Sound as well as touch. So Vayu can be heard as well as felt. And Vayos Tejaha. And from air, what came? From air, what came? From air, what evolved? Vayo Tejaha. Teja meaning what? Fire. So from air, the Agni evolved, the fire evolved. So meaning the attributes of sound, touch and Agni, meaning the form. So attributes of hearing, feeling and seeing. So air to fire or Agni. So then Vayo Tejaha, Tejasa Apaha. And from fire, Apa, water has evolved. Jalam. So what are the attributes? Obviously the other 3 attributes will get inherited. Can be sound, touch, form, and now water will have what? Sapidity, the taste. So it can be heard, it can be felt, it can be seen, and it can be tasted also. And then Adbhya Pridhivihi. So from water, the earth, meaning that is the grossest. So earth will have all these qualities: sound, touch, form, taste and smell. Smell of the earth. Maybe the smell of the earth you will appreciate when it rains, the smell of earth. And please understand that these, whatever we are discussing, the evolution of these five elements, they all are at a subtler level, at a sukshma bhudam. So our senses cannot perceive until and unless it becomes gross. So these all are at the tanmatra level. These all are at the subtle level. And how they will be understood? When this gets grossified, our organs will be able to have the perception. Otherwise, cannot be perceived. So let us start the first topic. Those who are using this book can go to Chaitanya Mission book, can go to 92nd page. Evolution of Sattva Gunam, evolution of Sattvic aspect. Etesham panchatattvanam madhye agashasya swatikamshad srotrendriyam sambhudam vayo swatikamshad tvagindriyam sambhudam Atne swatikamshad chakshurindriyam sambhudam Jalasya swatikamshad chakshurindriyam sambhudam Prithivya swatikamshad kranendriyam sambhudam. So the evolution of Sattva Gunam, meaning the Jnana Shakti, the organs of perception. See, when we say the organs of perceptions are born from the sattvic aspects of what? The five elements. The organs of perceptions are born from the sattvic aspects of the five elements. So what is the meaning here? Edesham panchatattvanam madhye agashasya satvika amshat srotrendriyam sambhudam. So with the sattva gunam, sattvam represents what? Knowledge, jnanam. So from the agashasya satvika amshat srotrendriyam sambhudam. Srotrendriyam meaning the instrument for hearing the sound. So from the essential sattva guna of agasham, the sound came into existence, or meaning the ears. I mean, for making the ears, because sound is heard through ears. And the guna of air, what is that? The guna of air evolved vayo swatikamshad tvagindriyam sambhudam. Tvagindriyam meaning the touch. The air is, I can say, is air is having the attribute of touch, and the skin is evolved. Skin is evolved. So then, Akne swatikamshad chakshurindriyam sambhudam. From the sattviga amsham of Agni, Agni is all about Rupam. What is needed for seeing a Rupam? You need to have the eyes. Agni swatikamshad chakshurindriyam sambhudam. From the Agnis, from the sattvic guna of Agni, the organ of, seeing evolved, that is the eyes. Then Jalasya swatikamshad chakshurindriyam sambhudam. From the sattviga amsham of jalam, abaha, what happened? Jalasya sattviga amshat, rasanendriyam sambhudam. Rasam meaning taste. So rasanendriyam got evolved from the sattviga aspect of apaha, tongue, water. From water, the faculty of taste, that is the tongue, got evolved. Then prithivya swatikamshat kranendriyam sambhudam. And from the Swatvika Amsham of Prithvi, what got evolved? Krana Indriyam. Kranam meaning the faculty to do the smelling. What is the faculty? This is nose. So, what happens here? The knowing faculties or the sensory faculties are born out of what? Born out of the Satvika Guna of the 5 elements. The 5 subtle organs of knowing faculties or the sensory faculties are born out of the Sattva Guna of the 5 elements, that is Agasham, Janam, Vayu, Agni, Prithvi. From them, using the Sattvika Amsham, that is the Sattva Guna, the 5 organs of sensory faculties or knowing faculties are evolved. Is it clear to all of you? Is it clear? So, not stopping there. Prithivya Sattigamshat Kranendriyam Sambhodham. Now, these all are the senses of perception. Who is perceiving? Who is getting the data from these receptors?
Manas.
Manas. So now we need the inner organ called as the mind. And how mind came? Mind came or mind got born out of the Sattvika components of the 5 elements. And how? Let us see this. Page number 94. Etesham panchatattvanam samashti sattvikamshad mano buddhi ahankara chittanda karanani sambhudani sankalpa vigalpatmagam manah nischayatmika buddhi aham karta ahankarah Chintana kartruchitvam manaso devata chandramaha buddher brahma ahankarasya rudraha chittasya vasudeva. So the fourfold mind, we can call it as the andhakaranam. What are those 4 compartments of mind? Manas, buddhi, ahankaram and chittam. How it came? The fourfold mind evolved from the Sattvic components of the 5 elements. Okay, so what are those 4 compartments of mind? Manas, first one is Manas. Manas is referred here as Sankalpa Vigalpatmagam Manaha. What is Sankalpa Vigalpatmagam meaning? We can call it as the doubting faculty. Manas is all about, oscillating between this and that. Manas is all about, wavering, or we can say it's Sankalpa Vigalpa. You all agree? Mind is the doubting faculty. Mind is all about the, oscillating principle which is acting in us. Mind thinks, for example, did I do correctly or not? Then you may feel that, yeah, I have done correctly. Again the mind will come and ask whether you answered that question properly or not. No, now I think I have not answered properly. So the mind will always oscillates. Sankalpa Vigalpatmagam Mana, wavering. And one more thing you have to understand is when we say these, the perception, the organs of perception, what are those? Ears, skin, eye, tongue and nose. These are born out of the Sattvika principles, Sattvika Guna of the 5 elements. And these organs are getting the information, and mind is the subtler, mind is the inner equipment which is needed to perceive the data coming from these 5 sensory receptors, right? So now you will appreciate that mind is the faculty that receives the data from these 5 sensory organs and makes some sense, or it may act on the data. You all agree that? So mind has to be behind this ears, skin, eye, tongue, nose, etc. And manas is what? Sankalpa vikalpatmakam mana. Now next compartment is what? Manasa buddhi. What is buddhi? Buddhi is nischayatmika buddhi. Nischayatmika meaning the cognition faculty. See, when you are in doubt, you may think, I have not locked my door. Did I lock while coming out? What was the last thing I was doing? Mind will put a doubt. Then the buddhi will come. No. Because I remember I pressing the door, right? So the logic is coming. So the faculty of cognition is coming. Correct. So what is buddhi then? Nischayatmika buddhi. Nischayatmika meaning what? The wavering attribute of mind is controlled to a great extent by the buddhi. So manas is chanchalam, manas is sankalpa vikalpa atmakam, buddhi is nischayatmikam, and the third compartment is aham karta ahankara. So ahankaram is the I notion, the ego, the individuality, sense of doership. And what happens? This ahankaram identifies the self which is not affected by any of these, the reality which is there within all of us. What happens? This ahankaram identifies with that self and makes a situation like, I am the actor, I have this pleasure, I have this pain, I have this sorrows. The I notion, the ego or the doership thing gets superimposed on the self and creates this dvandam, sorrow, pain, pleasure, toughness, goodness, badness. I am the one who does. So ultimately, I myself will identify as a limited being because the I notion, the ahankaram, gets superimposed on the top of the real self, which doesn't have any doership or enjoyership or any of those notions of the agential activities. So what is dangerous? Ahankaram, aham karta, ahankaram, the sense of doership, I notion, ego, individuality. The assumed personality is also created by ahankaram. And how the assumption happens? The superimposition of this ahankaram on the top of the real self. Correct? And we cannot decouple the other things, manasa, buddhi and chittam, because these all are a part of the manas. And now coming to the last one, ahankaram, ahankara, chittena, chindana kartru chittam. So chittam is what? Chindana kartru chittam. What is chindana kartru chittam meaning? This is the faculty of, what is it? Faculty to think. Anusandhan. It's all about, having or creating impressions and memories. Chittam, right? Chittam is basically the storage of, impressions and memories. Maybe we can say the vasanas. Clear? So, what are the four? Sankalpa Vikalpatmakam Manaha, Nischayatmika Buddhi, Ahankarta Ahankara, Chintanakartra Chittam. And not stopping there, the presiding deities, Manaso Devada Chandrama. So, what is the deity of Manasa? Manas is what? Manaso Devada Chandrama. So the presiding deity of Manasa is Chandran, moon. So that is where mind is related with the term you might have heard, lunatic. So the presiding deity of Manas is Chandran or moon. Buddher Brahma. Buddher Brahma. So here the Brahma is not the Brahman, is the Brahmava, Brahmaji. So for Buddhi, the faculty, the presiding deity is Brahmava. Then Ahankarasya Rudraha. For ego, it is Rudran or Shivan, who is symbolizing the destruction here. Ahankarasya Rudra. So, for us to understand in an easy way, in deep sleep, what happens? In deep sleep, what happens? Do we have the sense of doership, or I am sleeping, and any sort of such things are there in sleep?
All are plunged.
Yeah, so there is no sense of doership, there is no ego there. The ego is plunged into, ego is, solved into what? Into that reality. So, one way, the deep sleep, the regular sleep that we get every night is basically plunging all these faculties into that reality, including the ego. Ego is also dissolved. So, who is the presiding deity of ego? Rudra. Rudran is Shivan. Is also representing as the destruction. Destruction meaning what? It is basically again a dissolution. Ahankarasya Rudra. Then Chittasya Vasudeva. Who is Vasudevan? Vasudevan is the Sthitikarta, Vishnu. So the presiding deity of Chittam is Vasudevaha, Sthitikarta, the one who sustains. So that is where the memory, the notions, the impressions are sustained. Right? These vasanas are sustained in us, right? So based on the vasana, we take Janmam again. So now it is clear, 4 organs out of Samashti Tattvam, right? Edesham Panchatattvanam Samashti Swattikamshat. 4 organs. Which are those 4 organs? Manasa, Buddhi, Chittam, Ahankaram. Born out of the Samashti Sattvam, meaning the 5 elements, Samashti and Vyashti. There are 2 things. And 5 organs out of the Vyashti Sattvam. Vyashti meaning what? What is Samashti and Vyashti? What is the difference between Samashti and Vyashti? Microcosmic and macrocosmic, right? So 4 organs out of the Samashti Sattvam that comes out of the 5 elements. Those 4 organs are Manasa, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankara, and the 5 organs coming out of the Vyashti Sattvam, that is from the 5 elements, are what? The 5 sensory receptors or the 5 sensory organs. So total, how many are born now? Out of the Sattva Gunam, total 9 organs are born. Okay? And now coming to the Rajo Gunam. Please go to page number 99. Etesham panchatattvanam madhye akashasya rajasamshad vagindriyam sambhudam vayo rajasamshad panindriyam sambhudam vanne rajasamshad padendriyam sambhudam jalasya rajasamshad gudendriyam sambhudam pridhivya rajasamshat upastendriyam sambhudam etesham samashti rajasamshat panja prana sambhuda. So from the rajasic part of the 5 elements, 5 karmendriyams are getting formed. So out of the rajasic guna of the space, speech, vag indriyam, the organ of vag. From the rajasic space, agasham, jalam, vayu, agni, prithvi. From the rajasic agasham, speech organ, vak, right? The organ of speech getting formed. Rajasamshat vag indriyam sambhudam. Vayo rajasamshat pan indriyam sambhudam. Out of the rajasic air, pan indriyam sambhudam, the hands. Vanne rajasamshat, out of fire, padendriyam, that is the legs. Leg got formed. Jalasya rajasamshat gudendriyam sambhudam. From the rajasic space or rajasic attribute of water, the excretory organ gets formed, and from the prithivya rajasamshat upastendriyam sambhudam, from the rajasic attribute of earth, the genitals. So what happens? These 5 karmendriyas are created out of the rajogunam of agasham, jalam, vayu, agni, prithvi in the form of vagendriyam, panindriyam, padendriyam, gudendriyam, upastendriyam. So 5 karmendriyams are formed out of the rajasic gunam of the agasham, jalam, vayu, agni, prithvi. Not stopping there, etesham samashti rajasamshad panja prana sambhudaha. And out of the samashti rajogunam, the prana shakti gets formed. Please understand that the prana shakti is needed for the karmendriyam to act. Right? You all appreciate that the prana shakti should be there behind all the karmendriyam. You agree with me or not? Correct. So, though the pranan, if you see, pranan can be considered as a single shakti, but that pranan is acting in different forms. Pranan is only one shakti, but that pranan is acting in the 5 ways. How are they? So pranan acts as a way for doing the respiration, right? Breathing in and breathing out. And pranan acts in the form of apana vayu as the excretory system or doing the excretory process. Then the pranan acting as the vyanan. Vyanan meaning what? The circulation, blood circulation, etc. happening inside the body. And that pranan happening or acting in the form of udana vayu for reversing the systems or throwing out the system. Throwing out something which is, foreign that comes into our body. So pranan acts as the udanan for reversing, and pranan acts as the samanan to do the digestion. If you see the metabolic or catabolic, all those processes happens, right? So the prana shakti is needed behind all this karmendriya, correct? And how prana shakti is formed? Prana shakti is formed out of what? The samashti rajogunam of agasham, jalam, vayu, agni, prithvi. So now from the rajogunam of the 5 elements, what are born in this context? Panja karmendriyam and panja pranan, meaning 5 plus 5 items, 10 items. You all are with me? So 10 are born out of the rajas of agasham, jalam, vayu, agni, prithvi. And in the previous, how many got born out of the sattva gunam? 9. So how many are there now? 5 plus 5, 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 4. 19. And these 19 items are the sukshma shariram. So pancha jnanendriyam, 4 andakaranam, panja karmendriyam and panja pranan. So now 19 are sukshma shariram, and from where these 19 evolved? From the 5 elements, agasham, jalam, vayu, agni, prithvi. You add that 5 also. So 19 plus 5 is equal to 24. This is the 24 tattvam. Clear? I will not go into the tamasic aspect because it is slightly difficult for us to digest, but we will not take today that part. So 5 elements and 19 organs, the 24 tattvam gets formed. And these all are at the sukshma shariram level. We have not entered into the sthula shariram. That we will see once the tamogunam comes into picture. Tamogunam, and the tamogunam acting on the 5 elements. That is how the solidification or the panjigaranam happens. And next what we will see is basically how the gross elements will come into picture, how they gets created. And the gross gets created out of the tamasiga part of the subtle elements. And the grossification of the 5 elements will happen, and that is where from the invisible principle you will see the visible things, or from the invisible principle you will see the concretization or the grossification, or in Sanskrit it's termed as panjikara. I hope it is clear up till this point to all of you, online and face to face. Okay, so what we will do is we will get into the tamasic aspect of the evolution next Sunday. We will try to conclude the sattvam, rajas and tamasic, and we will try to get a good understanding of how the subtle elements get evolved and the gross elements are there, right? So once you have the clarity, then you will be able to understand the microcosmic plane as well as the macrocosmic plane. If that is clear, then comes the common thread between the microcosmic and macrocosmic principle, Jivan and the Paramatma, Jiva Atma and the Paramatma. And knowing the commonality is what we are trying, and knowing that commonality will only free us. Right? That is the ultimate purpose. Right? So, to know the Ishwaran, one way we can say it is good to know, or it is good to go within us. Right? To know the Prapancham, you can go within us and see, because the same elements, the five elements are there. Right? From there, this body is formed. So, to know the world, one can look into oneself. Correct? So, now what we are trying is the oneself, and we are also trying to see how the world is evolving. So, ultimately we will see that the common consciousness force is there in both planes, and we are connected with that, and that is our Swarupam. And the common thread is known, and then finally you realize that thread, you realize that source, you realize that energy within you. Right? And that only will bring the inner freedom, so called as the moksha, mukti. That is what we are trying to do. So what we will do is we will continue in the next session.